It says, in case of emergency, break glass with wrench. Hold on. This one says, use rock to break glass to get wrench to break glass to get rock. Ooh, I love logic puzzles. Let's see. If you break the glass with the...
Solved it.
That's a good metaphor for life. Hello and welcome back to the Ratchet & Clank Marathon. Now, last time we covered the original game and now we are covering its sequel, Ratchet & Clank Going Commando. Okay, yeah, let's cover that little thing right there. Every title in the series has some kind of innuendo in it, and trust me, we aren't to the worst of it yet. In fact, because of the innuendos, the names of the games were changed overseas, like this one in Europe being renamed to Ratchet & Clank 2 Locked and Loaded. But for the sake of the reviews, I'll be referring to the games by their American title or by their number. But to get back on track, after Ratchet & Clank 1 was completed, Insomniac was very enthusiastic about making a sequel immediately, riding the momentum that they already had. The game was approved for development 5 months before the first game even came out, and in 1 year the sequel was complete, packing more RPG elements, a bigger scale, and more weapons to blow stuff up with. So was that head-first mentality worth it, or is it just trying to cash out on the first game's success? Let's find out. So I want to cover a little bit of technical stuff before the review actually starts. So for Ratchet & Clank 1, I used my upscaler to help with the footage for that, mainly because there is no progressive scan or widescreen on Ratchet & Clank 1. But Ratchet & Clank 2 has these features and I can use my component cables on that, making it look a lot better. And that's how I'm going to be recording footage for the rest of this marathon. And again, I'm not using the collection because Ratchet 2 is where the problems with the collection really start to become clear. Not only do you have all the problems from the first game, but new ones as well. Like the game not letting you create another save file for New Game Plus when you beat it, video monitor sizes being much smaller, and most distracting of all, Ratchet's helmet floating above his head in every single cutscene, with no patches being released to fix it at all. You can even see this flat out in the trailer for the collection on PlayStation's official YouTube channel. By the way, in that trailer, they also showed Ratchet 3 footage where there was supposed to be Ratchet 2. Did anyone care when they were making this collection? Anyone? Now I know it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, but trust me, I want you guys to experience these games in the best way you can. And that trilogy is not the way to do it, no. Go with these bad boys right here. Anyway, let's get on to the review. So after defeating Drek in the first game, Ratchet and Clank have been minding their own business with really nothing interesting to do. Meanwhile, in another galaxy, Abercrombie Fizzwidget, the head of Megacorp, sees that his company could use Ratchet and Clank's help, and teleports them to his galaxy, the Bogon Galaxy, without Ratchet and Clank's permission. So in a sense, it's the fastest and farthest kidnapping the universe has ever seen. He wants them to retrieve an experiment that was stolen by a masked thief. After sweet talking the two a little bit more, Ratchet and Clank agree to help out and begin their new adventure. Now on the outside, that sounds like a very typical plot, but there's a lot more that happens in this story. And I have to describe all of it without spoiling anything. This might be kinda tough. Well, first off, notice how I didn't tell you why this experiment is important. And honestly, you're not really told why at the start, and not till really about halfway through the game, I'd say. And a big theme of the game is people not being as they seem. There's switching sides, plot twists, and honestly, a lot of mystery, which keeps you really engaged throughout. And you don't even know who's behind everything until the very last planet of the game. Don't worry, it's actually done really well. And I have to admit, with who it is, well played, Insomniac. Well played. So safe to say, this plot is way better than the first game. And honestly, it's the best story of all the games I'm playing for this marathon. The presentation of Ratchet & Clank 2 is also far superior than the original. Not only are we given widescreen and progressive scan, but the game also just looks nicer all around. Environments are a lot more colorful and more varied than the first game, making each of the planets stand out more. The music is pretty much on the same level as last time, though I would say it's a bit more action-packed and grander than the first title. But the big improvements to the presentation are easily in the cutscenes. In the first Ratchet & Clank, they would primarily just stay in one spot while talking to another. But now they move around in the cutscenes a lot more, and the animations look smoother and better overall, which makes them a lot more fun to watch. Helping those cutscenes is the voice acting, which is still solid and probably better than the first game. Oh yeah, I kinda forgot to talk about that so far. Ratchet has a new voice, now provided by James Arnold Taylor. He definitely sounds older and not pre-teeny anymore, and I ultimately liked this voice a lot more and got adjusted to it really fast. Along with that, they fine-tuned his personality in all the right spots. He doesn't come off as a jerk as much as he did in the first game, and he's a lot more likable, but he still has a backbone to him. Overall, I think they made him a much stronger protagonist for the series, and you do want to see him more and more. Now, while talking about cutscenes, the videos for each planet are also far better. Mainly because they're no longer limited to just infobots, so they got to be a lot more creative with these videos. From commercials to a stadium arena show, to security camera footage, or even a balloonogram, the variety keeps up and I think they're far more interesting than last time. And easily the best part of the presentation that was improved, the writing. Don't get me wrong, I love the script for the first Ratchet & Clank game, but here the jokes are just rapid fire and almost every single one of them is a hit, in both the planet videos and the cutscenes. Here's just a few examples.
Are you man enough, hero enough, insane enough to step into the ring with two of the fiercest warriors in the galaxy? If you answered yes, you're a big, fat liar.
This update is strictly classified. If you are watching this, you're fired.
Get lost before I flatten your robot into a hubcap. Touch him, and it's Plasma City! Oh gosh, you didn't have to yell. Why did you have to yell?
Hey man.
I can't hear you. La 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 la. Only the little guy.
And it's like this for every cutscene, it's so good! Even the background enemies in the levels provide humor as well. Only on this playthrough, I just noticed that these two guards are playing rock, paper, scissors against each other before you attack them, or how the enemies pose like mannequins before they jump out and attack you. I can't help but find that funny, especially when you think how long they had to hold those poses for. Really, think about it. So the presentation just steps it up in every way from the first game. But is the gameplay a step up from the original, or is it just more of the same? The structure of Ratchet & Clank 2 is very identical to how it was in the first game. Go to a planet, blow up everything in your path, and perform a task of some kind at the end of the planet to get an item or new coordinates to a planet and move on. But the process from getting to point A to point B is so much more fun. For one, Ratchet controls so much better than the last game. For one, he feels much more precise moving around, he's a bit faster, and get this, by holding down the L2 button, you can finally strafe! Yes! This alone makes fighting enemies so much easier than last time, mainly because you're able to move around and aim a lot better this time. And the other thing that makes fighting enemies easier is the quick select. When you use it, the action pauses all around you, giving you as much time as you want to pick your weapon. Yes! Thank you! And something I forgot to mention last time, by double tapping the triangle button, you can quick select to your last weapon choice, so it can be handy. Now in terms of your equipment, you don't really start off with much. I guess because they got dragged from one galaxy to another with none of their equipment on them, but only 2 weapons? You want Ratchet & Clank to save something very important to your company, and that's all you give them, Mr. Fizzwidget? And then you force them to buy more weapons from your company? Why would you? You corporate scumbag. Really, the only things you keep from the first game are the swing shot, grind boots, and Clank with all his upgrades. Once you find all of them. Yes, even Clank, who you don't have at the beginning of the game. And I never understood that decision. But I am glad to have all the upgrades back, especially the thruster pack, and you bet I changed to that right away. Now in terms of the new toys Ratchet gets, let's talk about weapons, and holy crap, it's so good this time. This might be my favorite weapon lineup of the whole series. The ratio of good weapons is so high, I find myself buying almost every weapon during a playthrough. And the big reason why the weapons are so much better than last time is the fact they can now be upgraded. Every weapon has experience points that you gain by defeating more enemies with them. Gain enough and the weapon will upgrade, getting more powerful and some added effects. This alone changes the entire nature of the combat system. Now you have a reason to buy more weapons and use them a lot more. You can also get some weapons from Ratchet 1 again, the Bomb Glove, Decoy Glove, Visibomb, Walloper, and a Tesla Claw. And you can have them for free if you have a far enough save file. Though they don't get upgrades at all, so I rarely ever use them, but oh well. But Ratchet also has his own experience gauge that once he levels up, he can gain more nanotech. And when the actual upgrade happens, not only do you get the extra health piece, but the screen flashes white and everything on screen dies. And trust me, that's really helpful when it happens. There's also another type of vendor this time with armor upgrades. You get this just a little bit halfway through the game. These cost a lot both, but trust me, get these upgrades as fast as possible. Since you are able to upgrade your own health more frequently than the first game, the enemies now take a lot more health from you. So it's in your best interest to get these armors ASAP. And don't worry about getting bolts. The amount of bolts that drop now have been dramatically increased. So now bolt scarcity is no longer a problem. You even get a gadget layer called the Box Breaker that destroys all breakable objects near you. Speaking of gadgets, you have the Grind Boots and Swing Shot as stated before, but you also get the Dynamo that creates platforms, the Tractor Beam that lets you both move platforms and activate slingshots, the Therminator that lets you freeze or heat up water, the Hypnomatic that allows you to take control over robots, a glider to travel through the air, the Levitator that lets Clank fly over big chasms, 2 new door openers with the Electrolyzer and Infiltrator, the Charge Boots to let you zoom across the level in a straight line, and the Gravity Boots, which are a lot like the Magnet Boots from last time, but now you can jump and move at full speed, which make them a massive improvement. You also have other types of gameplay to break up the action, such as Clank's Robo-Minion and Giant Clank sessions, both of which are much better than last time. Mainly for the mini-bots coming right back to you when they die instead of you having to find them again, and the addition of bridge, hammer, and lifting bots add more variety. And the Clank fights are now full-on boss battles, and they're a lot more engaging than last time. And then there's also 3 Maxi games. I see what you did there, Insomniac. Maxi instead of mini, haha, very funny. Anyway, there's racing minigames on hover bikes, which are thankfully nowhere near as frustrating as the hoverboard from last time. Space battles that are full-on dogfights where you're able to upgrade your ship with rare titanium you find. And what I consider to be the most important, the arenas. In these, you have to perform certain challenges as you fight wave after wave of enemies, with some exclusive bosses in here as well. Completing the challenge will earn you extra bolts and your weapons will gain experience while in the arena. Yeah, it's just as awesome as it sounds. There's also 2 full sandbox areas where you're able to find crystals and exchange those for even more bolts. And that's about it for the gameplay of Ratchet 2. So what elements does the game get right? Okay, I'm just letting you know this beforehand. This section of the review is gonna get long because, man, Ratchet 2 fixes so many of the issues I had from the first game. In fact, it fixes things that didn't even need fixing. One, as I stated before, I love this game's plot. It kept me engaged the entire time, and I think it's easily the most well-done plot of all the PS2 Ratchet games. The humor also helped with that as well, and it feels like a punchline is coming at you every 2 minutes, and it's great. In fact, I'm still catching even more jokes to this day. Like this joke about Mr. Fizzwidget's coffee.
Yes, low fat, extra foam, no sprinkles. No, decaffeinated. What?
What kind of coffee are you drinking, old man? But the gameplay of going Commando is where it really starts to shine. First off, there's a lot more platforming this time around. The first game had some here and there, but it's a lot more prevalent here, and I think it adds a lot more to the level design instead of them just being flat most of the time. The Dynamo and Gravity Boots really help with this a lot. Going Commando has such a great weapon lineup. With maybe 2 or 3 exceptions, I use almost every single one of your new weapons. From the Ninja Star Chopper, the Stream Shooting Lava Gun, the Defensive Mini Turret, the Enemy Zapper of the Plasma Coil, and my favorite weapon of the entire franchise, the Bouncer. It's a gun that shoots a big ball that explodes and then turns into several tiny balls that also explode. This thing is amazing, okay? And as soon as you upgrade it, you basically won the game at that point. Speaking of which, the whole upgrading system is such a great addition. Now I actively want to use my weapons more and more so that they keep upgrading. I almost never use my wrench anymore, even though the power of it does get upgraded twice through the story. With these weapons, I also love the new quick select and strafing feature. The quick select gives me a lot more confidence in battle, and in combat I'm almost always holding down the L2 button. After playing the first game, being able to strafe feels so nice. And ammo is also handled a lot better here, because as soon as you go to the weapon in the shop, the ammo count goes right to the max that you can buy for that weapon, speeding up the flow of the game a lot more. The game is just also a lot more engaging than last time, not only for the new battle system, but for what you do on different planets. Almost everything is tied to progression, whether it's finding upgrades, or a new planet that you can go to, or finding a lot of bolts. Mainly in the maxi minigames, especially the arenas where not only are you getting bolts, you're also upgrading your weapons at the same time. Only a few of the missions are required, but trust me, these arenas will become your friend. Not to mention you have those sandbox areas where you can score a lot of cash fast, thanks to not only defeating enemies, but exchanging all the crystals for more bolts as well. So yeah, you should never, ever have to look for money, which was a big problem last time, and I'm glad they fixed that. I'm also happy with the new health system, because last time you could only upgrade to 8 nanotech, and you had to pay 40,000 bolts in order to get that. Now it doesn't cost anything to get upgraded health, and you can even find expansions as you progress. The armor is also a fantastic addition, and is yet another form of defense to help the player, which I really feel like the first game lacked defensive options, so I'm grateful for this. And the two types of puzzles are far better than the Trespasser from last time. The Electrolyzer can be really engaging as you need to focus down and get the timing right, and micromanage the screen. And the Infiltrator is my personal favorite, as it's all about trying to find a successful route back to the center without finding dead ends. And trust me, it's so satisfying to one-shot this puzzle. Almost everything I had a problem with last time was fixed, and it makes it such an improvement over the last game. And a big part of the improvement is New Game Plus, which guys, this might be one of the greatest New Game Pluses I have ever played in a game. First off, you can get even more bolts through a multiplier that keeps going up the more enemies you destroy without getting hit. But it doesn't just stop at like 2 or 5 or 10, more like 20. Yeah. It makes it so much easier to get the new Rhino 2, which shoots lasers of death, and the Zodiac, which is a screen nuke, and the final armor. Anyone else think of Terminator or RoboCop with this armor? Anyone else get that? Anyone? But the best part of this mode is your weapons. You thought you were done upgrading them? Silly player, you can buy a mega version of that weapon and level it up again! And replaying the game with all of these extras make it so much more fun. How much more fun? That much. So remember how I like the developer behind the scenes kind of stuff that you can get in games? Well, Ratchet Clank 2 has one of the best versions of this that I've seen in probably any game ever. By going to a special teleporter when you get everything in the game, or going to it when it's 3 AM, or just glitching your way through this building, you can access the Insomniac Museum, a full recreation of their offices with a bunch of taken out content from Ratchet 1 and 2. And I don't mean just simple concept art or anything like that. I mean full models, rideable vehicles, debugging with different particle effects, illusion effects, the magnet boots test track, and even the jump and terrain level test, with the developers telling you about each individual thing in the museum. This is easily one of the coolest extras I've ever seen in a game. You can spend so much time in here, and it really does show the behind the scenes of the game. Almost everything about this game is polished and amazing, easily making it a fun game to play. Keyword: almost. While Ratchet 2 fixes a lot from the first game, it does make a share of mistakes. Now, while the racing is nowhere near as bad as before, the ship parts, Now, I'll admit the control for the ships in the first game was a little stiff, but now it's way too loose. You'll slide all over the place and it's hard to get a clear shot. I have to keep tapping the stick left and right all the time just to steer correctly, and your movement options feel really limited compared to what your enemies can do. All you have is a turbo and a roll that really means nothing, as the enemy can shoot you just fine. I really wish you had some kind of reflect roll or a U-turn function like Star Fox, because it's hard to get these enemies off your tail here. Luckily they're short and there's not too many of them, so it's not too bad, but it is annoying. I would also say that the glider can be a bit problematic. The first few times it's fine, but when trying to go for this health upgrade or the final section with it, you really start to feel the control being way too tight and strict, as you're gonna die a lot. It's not too bad, but again, it can be annoying to deal with at points. If there's one gadget I'm not a fan of, it's for sure the Terminator. Other than adjusting the level of the water/ice, they don't really do much with it and it feels like a pace breaker. The only time they do something creative with it is when you need to use it here to create a grind rail, but they never do anything like that again, and it makes this gadget feel really tacked on. While I love that your weapons upgrade naturally this time, I think this does make the collectible big bolts, now platinum bolts, lose a lot of their value. Before, they would upgrade your actual weapons. Now they only do weapon mods such as acid, lock-on, or shock values to the weapon. And while it's still helpful, I don't find myself needing to get these as much as I did in Ratchet 1. And it's not even like you need them, as this game is far easier than the first one, which I'm fine with, except for the boss fights. These guys put up no challenge at all. Look at this, all I'm doing is just pressing the fire button. All of them go down within a few seconds and they aren't very memorable at all. Well, except for one, but not in a good way. The main boss of the Thugs for Less uses a giant mech, which sounds like an awesome fight, but your weapons aren't the primary way you fight him. Some work, but you're most likely out of ammo at this point since you just went through a gauntlet with them, so you need to use these turrets in order to fight him. And he has so much health! So this battle just goes on and on and on. And it's not like he changes his tactics. No, it's the same thing over and over. Please don't die to this guy, because you're going to need to go through all of this again. And it's easily the worst part of the game. But really, that's all the problems I have with Ratchet & Clank 2. Which means I get to go back to raving about the game again. Yay! Honestly, what else do I have to say about Ratchet & Clank Going Commando? It does just about everything right for a sequel. It improves on the foundation that the first game made and builds upon it. I love the weapon upgrade system, I love the new health system as well, how creative the plot is, the new areas that you go to, and just about everything that this game did. There are a few annoyances here and there, but I'd be crazy for that to get in the way of all the things that this game did right. If you want to start playing Ratchet & Clank, you start here. The developers' enthusiasm for making this definitely shows, and I can easily classify this as a fantastic game. Guys, just go and play this game already, and you'll have a blast.
I promise.
You know, I really was wondering after reviewing this game if my opinion would change or not, but after picking up the controller again, everything just started to fall right back into place for me. And after really examining this game and going deep into it, I think I enjoy the game even more now. But there are 2 more games I have to cover for this marathon. So, next time we meet up, we're going to be looking at Ratchet & Clank 3. Up Your Arsenal. I love that name. See you then. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about the episode down below. Trust me, I do read them. And yes, I know there is facial hair on my face. I know this. Anyway, if you haven't seen the Ratchet 1 review, check out the video on the left. Or if you're new to my channel, check out all the previous episodes on the right. If you want to follow me, check me out on Facebook and Twitter because I update them quite frequently. And if you want to support the show directly, go to my Patreon. All the money there goes right back into production. By the way, thank you Soul Ninja Star, Urkana, and Shy Ranger for being my top patrons. Thank you guys, you're awesome. Now, if the Ratchet 2 review took a long time, now imagine the Ratchet 3 review. Please, Please give me time for this one. Anyway, I'll see you then.